It's late July here in southwest Ohio, and the garden is in full swing. Everything's growing fast, and that means I have to work just as hard to keep up. This is the time of year where maintenance becomes a daily rhythm. Pruning, weeding, harvesting, planting again. It's a beautiful kind of chaos. While the rain has been so good for growth, many crops like garlic and onions have been getting too much. Tomatoes demand the most this time of year. I prune for airflow and structure, removing lower leaves and any diseased foliage and most of the suckers that pull energy from the plant. With all the rain, growth has been vigorous, so I take time to check that each vine is well supported. Unfortunately, the sudden jump in temperatures hurt pollination. Several blossoms failed to set, meaning some early fruit are lacking as a result. Sometimes it's tricky to spot evidence of a hornworm. You can see frass or their feces, chewed leaves, chewed tomatoes. I even caught a hornworm in the act right before a cardinal swooped in and took it out. This pair of cardinals has been busy helping themselves to cabbage worms and other garden pests. Between the birds and beneficial insects like wasps, hoverflies, and lacewings, the pest pressure hasn't been too bad this year. This is something I've been waiting to see. The lacewings even wiped out an aphid outbreak in the greenhouse.
Look at all of those.
Their eggs are laid on little stalks like this.
20 or more.
Nature's doing its part, and I'll take all the help I can get.
I saw the soil moving, and this is a big one. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I'll get you back under there.
I pulled the garlic earlier this month, about a week earlier than I wanted, but rain was anticipated, and I wanted to make sure to get it out of the soil. With all the rain, the skins were starting to split, and I feared rot would set in. The bulbs were a little on the small side, probably too much shade and cloud cover this spring, but they cured just fine. Same with the onions. Some were large, some were small. I had a mix of red and yellows. Most of them are all drying now with good airflow, and I'll clean them up and separate the best ones for storage. I'll also use quite a few during my canning days. And there's actually still quite a few in the garden and greenhouse that weren't quite ready. Inside the greenhouse, I cleaned out the 15-bean bed. It was a fun experiment, but it had run its course. I'll put together a separate video on the project when the beans are all cured and cleaned up. And then I'll come back and check on them in a little while. See if they've adjusted okay. I planted some tomato plants and peanuts in its place and tucked in an extra eggplant while I was at it. Then I gave everything a layer of leaf mold as mulch to help reduce moisture loss. And would you look at this single pumpkin vine? It's taken over half the greenhouse like it owns the place. I swear it grows at least a foot a day in here with all the heat and humidity. Recently it escaped the confines and it's headed outside on both ends. And much to my dismay, the tomatoes in here aren't performing as well as last year, but the peppers sure look fantastic. We've already enjoyed a couple of crisp green bells. I always pick the first few fruits while they're still green to encourage more blooms and even more fruit. If you let one fully ripen early on, it signals the plant that its job is done. In the herb bed, I did some hard cutting back. Oregano, thyme, sage, basil, they were all trying to flower. I wanted to keep them in leaf production a little longer, and they look so much better. I did leave the flowers on for a little while for the pollinators, but it's time to let them go before they set seed. I planted out my Tulsi basil and some late parsley, then added a thick layer of leaf mold to mulch and feed the soil. This bed always does better with a little refresh midsummer. The weed pressure has been intense this year with all the rain and heat, so I've been tackling it by hand. I try to get out there early in the morning before the heat kicks in. It can feel overwhelming if I focus on the whole garden at once, but taking one bed at a time keeps it manageable. If that's all I get done, then that's all I get done. There's always tomorrow. Most of the weeds go to the compost, but anything that has gone to seed gets piled up for the chickens. They'll pick out the seeds, and the rest attracts detritivores. Free food all around. Anything diseased goes into the burn pile to be disposed of. Let's go take a look at the prairie. It's buzzing with life right now. This time of year, the monarda, echinacea, liatris, joe pyeweed are all blooming, and they're covered in pollinators. Bumblebees, butterflies, wasps, and hoverflies, not just my honeybees. This diversity is intentional. The prairie helps support native insects and birds and offsets the pressure from the honeybees nearby. I've seen more birds this year than usual. I usually feed the wild birds through the winter to encourage them to stay close by, but in the summer I cut back on feeding to nudge them toward natural pest control instead. We also pulled some beautiful honey recently, over 200 pounds. Little less than last year, but still a solid harvest. It was quite the eventful weekend with robbers and aggressive hives. I'll link that video here if you want to check it out. The work is constant in July, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Fresh food on the table, herbs drying everywhere, jars of honey ready to share, and a garden that hums with life. These are the rhythms I live for, quiet, seasonal, and connected. And keeping my mind and body occupied is good for the soul. And after a long stretch of tending and harvesting, it feels good to bring something fresh into the kitchen. Even a simple meal from the garden reminds me why I do this, why the weeding, pruning, and planting is all worth it. It's food that I trust, grown with care, and it always tastes better when it comes from just outside the door. And soon enough, I'll be canning and drying, dehydrating, all my favorites, so that I can enjoy the garden year-round. And this is what it's all about, growing food, feeding ourselves, and staying connected to the seasons. Thanks for spending a little time in the garden with me today. Let me know what you're harvesting or preserving, or what's taking over your garden this month. I'd love to hear it.